Hello there. On this week's Data Radio Show, it's tool time. I'm not doing the Tim Allen laugh, just jump ahead of the credits. I'll talk to you soon. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Data Radio Show. It's an interesting one this week because I wanted to learn a little bit more about tools. You see, I used to have a maths teacher in high school who would tell us you can't really hammer a nail using a brick. You have to have a hammer. You've got to have the right tools for the job. And it always stood out for me, mostly because he used a metal ruler in that same conversation to whack another student over the knuckles, and it ended up losing him his job. That kind of thing tends to stand out. But the tool thing also stood out for a really good reason. Now, fast forward a number of years, and we live in a world where technology and data are so important, but the tools to be able to manage them are constantly evolving and changing. And we've seen with the rise of things like generative AI over the last few years that kind of leap in how data is managed and architecture is built is going to change a lot as well. And I've had a couple of different tools sort of show up on my radar over the last couple of weeks. They're designed around the architecture known as Data Vault, and it's really important to know that this is sort of the focus of this episode. But there are tools out there as well that work with other types of data architecture. For this week, though, I'm sitting down and having a chat with Julien Redmond. He's the CEO of Ignition and IRiS. IRiS have actually been working on the sort of 2.0 version of what they offer. And they've been working with something called FlowBI, which was a data architecture tool built by Michael Olszymski from Scalefree. Michael was one of the first people to really get involved with Data Vault. He's by far one of the most knowledgeable experts in the field. So seeing a tool that he's created hit the market that uses some of the elements of things like generative AI to really speed up the process was something that made me go, whoa. And then finding out about something like IRiS version 2.0, which is designed almost like a connection tool, like a hub for other tools and automation to work together, I had to learn a little bit more. So today, we're going to chat to Julien. Let's jump over there and hear what he has to say. Right, Jules, thank you very much for joining me. I wanted to have a chat to you today about some product news that we've seen rolling out. You mentioned in the masterclass that we did earlier in the month about something called FlowBI, which is a new tool that's coming out to help with data architecture. And I know that you guys have been working on something as well with IRiS. So I kind of wanted to learn a little bit more about each of these. But the first question I've got for you is, why do you think it's important for people to know they've got the right tools to do the job?
Yeah, I guess it's just a productivity
Mm-hmm.
question, isn't it? I mean, if you have the right tools, you're going to do the job efficiently. You probably don't want to build the foundations for a building with a bobcat. You might need something a little larger than that. So there's a range of tools out there for Data Vault now. A good selection of automation tools, good selection of data modeling tools, and then the traditional data management platforms that manage things like scheduling and governance and security and privacy and all those things. So there's lots of ways to skin a cat, I guess, is the old saying. Not a very nice saying, maybe, but there's lots of
No.
ways to put together a platform architecture that works for you, and often that'll come down to what tools someone's already selected and already has in their environment. There's no point buying something that does something that they already have, and therefore money's sitting on the shelf. So I think it's really important to understand what components, what capabilities your data platform needs to deliver you, and then assess what capabilities you have already in the tools you've already selected, and then find ways to fill those capability gaps. And sometimes that means replatforming, but sometimes it means choosing a really specific tool. Like one of the tools I really like is the InfoSecure tool from the Infovire team, because it addresses, how do you manage access control down to, the cell level, by the individual and even, where they're located, I think, as well. So, where they're coming in from. So they might be in a secure site and a secure person, therefore they can access this information. And their engine's really cool because you can apply it to a bunch of different business rules and stuff as well. So it's kind of a way to fill a hole that might not be covered by if you have invested in Microsoft's end-to-end platform or one of the other big vendors, one of the cloud platforms, the AWS platform or something, has uh, a range of basic capability, but when you
Mhm.
get specific, you might find holes, and you can do that. But then there's obviously other platforms that give you, quite a large suite of tools, and so if you're starting greenfield, well, then maybe they suit you better. So it's an interesting field, I think, and it's why there's always um, new developments, and there's acquisitions and all of those sorts of things, because as big vendors realize they have gaps, they tend to acquire small vendors to fill those holes and make their platform more complete. So you see this constant evolution.
With these evolutions as well for new platforms, new tools, and stuff like that, and it almost feels like a democratization of information through other more sort of user friendly, wider reaching platforms like ChatGPT. Um, where do you see the need for expertise coming into this whole big picture?
Oh, I mean, the different layers of architects we have within IT, is it always kind of makes me astounded to find a new architect every day almost. But you have the guys who do the infrastructure architecture and the network architecture, and then your application architecture and your data architecture, and like it keeps building up, and your security and privacy, and all these different things. And we've been having chats over the last few days about the AI architecture, which is really interesting, because it's not build a data set and slap one all powerful AI over the top and it will answer all questions.
Mhm.
That's not how things work currently. Who knows when that happens? You will bow down to the overlords. Um, but but really, there is a way of combining multiple AI agents to achieve different tasks. And so you probably have an AI agent that understands a use case or understands a data set pretty well. It's been pre-trained to do certain things, and it can act in a particular role. And so there's uh, chat dev and autogen kind of software development um, tools that use AI agents and put them into specific roles to act as a developer or a tester or a QA, and run through that cycle. So that's pretty interesting as well, I think. So um, there is lots of places where you can get it wrong, right? I think there's lots of places where you need to really sit down and think about what it is you want out of it. Is this, you're trying to build a data platform that supports all purposes for the business now and what's coming, and obviously AI is coming. So how do you do that? That's part of why the Ignition team developed the Launchpad thing that we talked about a while ago. Is that's trying to actually provide an architecture to have uh, unstructured information and a structured data vault in a single environment that allows you to do your AI path and your traditional analytics path, um, and blend the two together when you need to. So yeah, so I think there's
How
I
does
think there's lots of roles for people to lean on experience to architect these right things. Once it's in place, the burden for BAU is probably a lot less because these tools are getting so good.
so for people who are sort of starting their career at the moment in the data field, would you recommend anywhere in particular for them to focus their studies on for growth a little bit into the future?
Um, like I mean, I think the prompt engineering and using AI is definitely a thing that you should absolutely be doing. I've got two kids in university, and both of them are using AI regularly, approved use of AI,
Mhm.
to help them with the various things they're doing. So whether that's writing code, but then using an AI to check over your code, or a whole range of things. One's in a more creative field, and one's in an engineering field, and both are being encouraged to use it. And I think that's the thing, is it's just another tool. We have to work out how to use the tool. It's certainly going to make many tasks that were hard and slow and laborious uh, go away. But then there'll be a whole range of new opportunities to leverage it, and provide better insights and those sorts of things. But there is no replacement for good data, that's governed, curated, that the quality is managed, that it's that the relationships have been explicitly stated between silos of data. Those sorts of things right now still require some human intervention, and who can predict the future? Like maybe
Yeah.
there'll be an AI in 10 years' time that just takes all of that and does it all for us. But we're not there yet. Right now, we need AI enabled tools to make those laborious tasks of getting that curated data set ready so that people still need to make decisions. So it's really important, I think. And like any IT system, any type of analytics, if the data quality and is poor, and and the relationships aren't clearly stated and those sorts of things, then you're not going to be able to rely on the answers. So an AI could make mistakes probably easier than a human could. Like the human intuition around this doesn't feel right still probably has some value there.
So where does a tool like FlowBI come into this whole structure? Where does it fit in the sort of mosaic of what we're looking at?
Yeah. Well, I won't profess to be an expert, but Michael Olszymki from Scale Free team over
Mhm.
there, he and a number of colleagues have started FlowBI, um, and it's taking a generative AI approach to building a target data vault model. So helping people, it's profiling masses of source data. It's identifying what the business keys are and what the relationships between the business keys are, and helping to generate a target data vault model, which is excellent. Like it's a really, I mean, it kind of think everyone probably logically thought, yep, this is going to come at some point, and they've just got on and made it happen, and it's pretty cool. So, I mean, it's in pre-release now. Flow.bi is the website. So, it's pretty new. I don't know a huge amount about it. My team has been looking at it. We're working with it. We're going to be partnering with them. We're absolutely going to be partnering with them to take the models that they design and then being able to generate the code for that using IRiS to generate data vaults. So that will be pretty cool. But yeah, it's taking essentially an AI approach to it. But even that, as I understand it right now, requires a human then to, go through QA it, make sure it makes sense, approve it, and push it forward. But it'll help people stay on the Vault standards.
Mhm.
It'll help them solve problems quicker, and evolve their model over time. Um, so it's just another task that used to take quite a bit of time that's going to be a lot easier and have less human involvement, but not no human involvement. Just and then the same as what happened with data vault automation. People used to write lines and lines and lines of code, and now we ingest the model that FlowBI produces, pass through some mapping information, and hey presto, there's all your code for your target warehouse. So yeah, I think it's going to help people get projects up and going pretty quick. It's pretty exciting, and it's the first, but I'm sure there'll be others as well. Um, obviously Michael and his knowledge about Data Vault and the team that they've pulled together, they know it really well. So it's certainly, if you're going to pick a team to build the first generative Data Vault modeler, yeah, it's a pretty good choice.
Yeah, I don't think you could find anyone better than Michael for it. His whiteboard Friday sessions that he does on Scale Free just shows you how much knowledge he has on the topic.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
remember,
yeah,
like it's it's obviously in pre-release now, so so it's probably not fully functioning, does every little nuance of a data vault model currently, but it's just going to get better and better.
mm,
So it's gonna make data modelers' lives easier and easier, data engineers' lives easier and easier. Um, so that you can get on and actually, because we've said this for years, is like you should focus on helping the business solve their analytical needs, not focus all your effort on just integrating and managing data. Well, tools like this make that possible. A small team can then actually work with end users to say, well, what insights are you actually trying to find? What problems does the business have that you don't understand enough to be able to provide a solution for? And now let's go, well, do we have the data set? Can we integrate it? Of course we can. Like next day, let's have an integrated data set that provides an answer or some insight into that particular problem. And closing the gap between what a business user like understands about the business but doesn't understand about what's in the data sets. Helping them close that gap is pretty important.
I've come across businesses who get the sort of the higher ups in the business get a little frustrated sometimes with the timeframes for setting up this kind of data infrastructure. I imagine tools like this and IRiS is going to really help with that side of things. The people who don't necessarily understand the nuance of what's going on or why it's taken so long in the past. Are we talking substantial speed differences and time differences?
And we had one of our early IRiS adopters do a pilot of it against what they'd been doing previously, and that their answer was that it was 10 times quicker. We had another one
Wow.
who said their answer was that it was 8 times quicker. So you're definitely talking about big improvements. Whether that washes out across every site, obviously there are other automation tools, and if they're moving from one automation tool to another, you're not going to get that same scale of improvement, but you might get some improvements because the development process is simplified or more intuitive, those sorts of things. You add into that the time that it takes to actually do the modeling, which is really reliant on accessing subject matter experts within the business to really understand what does this data mean. Is customer in this system actually the same as customer in that system? Are they at the same grain? Is it identifying the same types of people? Can we bring that data together? Usually that takes lots of conversations and also data analysis. And so the tool like FlowBI can actually do a lot of that for you and say, hey, here's what we think the answer is. All you need to do is QA it and approve it. Then that there's huge time savings there as well. So the business is 10 years ago, a data warehouse project was 18 months to 2 years. Now it's a couple of months. I guess in 5 years' time, it might be a couple of weeks, or a week.
That's
Who knows?
that's impressive. That's
Mm,
really impressive.
mm.
Tell me a little bit about IRiS 2.0, because I know you guys are sort of in the process of getting that all set up. I've had a quick look over the website, and that will be launching soon. Really impressive stuff.
Yeah, so I guess maybe the theme of this is what's in pre-release, because IRiS 2.0 is a big shift from the initial IRiS that really has only been sold in Australia and New Zealand. So a number of customers using that version, and the new version IRiS 2.0 is now available for trial with a few customers, and we've got a few customers coming on to it already now. And the website will be up in I think like a couple of days. I've got to proofread a number of pages. So what it really is it's taken all of the capability that was built in the original IRiS, but then it's built a whole new user interface to just make doing data vault automation simple. And as specifically, it's been designed so that it can be deployed within an existing architecture that doesn't have data vault automation. So if someone's invested in, one of the big platforms, Microsoft Azure, maybe a Talend or something like that, they don't have a data vault automation capability. IRiS can go in there. It doesn't disrupt everything else. It just fits in and gives you data vault automation, and it does it in a way that's really intuitive for the user. So it takes an input model. It allows you to do your source to target mapping within the user interface, and you generate your code, and then it allows your existing platform then to manage that code and deploy it through to your production and those sorts of things. So it's non-disruptive. It's priced really well as well. So that's probably one of the big things we've been able to achieve is actually changing the metrics around pricing for automation. And so it'll work with FlowBI. It'll integrate with other modeling tools like SQL DBM or ER Studio or Irwin or those sorts of things. It'll take a model, it'll generate the code that you need to load your data from source into that model, and it'll deploy it into Snowflake, Databricks, um, Synapse, and and that list will grow as well. And that's what it's for. So yeah, so it's ready to roll. We're signing up partners in the northern hemisphere at the moment, so it's coming out globally, which is good. And yeah, we're pretty excited about it. But there'll be a lot more sort of stuff at the moment. So right now we're doing some trials with some of our existing customers. We've got a few customers starting to gear up to roll out this new version into their environment. But yeah, it's very different, I think, to the other automation tools in that it's not trying to be the warehouse management platform. It's being a data vault automation development tool. So different approach, but fits really nicely with with the likes of tools that are doing other very specific purposes, like FlowBI or like the InfoVia stuff or like SQL DBM and those sorts of things. So.
When you're developing something like IRiS, how do you fit that into a sort of map of what other people are doing and come up with something a little bit different that's still going to work with them and sort of, it sounds like it's going to take what they do and improve it. So how do you create something that fits into a slightly different mold, but
We probably
still
took a different angle than we probably did the thing we know really well,
Mm-hmm.
So IRiS in its first version was trying to incorporate tools, governance tools and modeling tools and scheduling capability and all these other things to be an end-to-end platform. And really, we were embedding other people's tools into the platform to give it a complete story. And that's not our area of expertise. Our area of expertise is how do you build data vault code? Um, we are Data Vault practitioners. Knowles is a Data Vault trainer, and he's been working with the IRiS development team to get this thing to be the best possible version of Data Vault automation that we can imagine. And uh, and so what we said was, well, how do we make it the easiest thing for anyone to consume, regardless of what other choices they've already made? So there's 15 different modeling tools. There's 30 different data warehouse platforms. There's 10 different enterprise scheduling tools or Git repositories or security tools or whatever else. And so all of those things already exist, and people could have made a selection of any number of combinations of all of those things. How do we say, well, actually what we want to do is just the bit in the middle that kind of fits in, that doesn't force them to change any of that other stuff that they've already committed to, that doesn't force them to buy licenses of stuff that they don't need or are redundant, but gives them the best possible data automation capability and allows them to manage the output with the systems and processes they already have in place. So we kind of just looked at what do we do well, and we focused on that, and that led us down this path. And really, the big revelation for this is simplifying the development process for generating code. It is really simple. It's load up a couple of files, do your mapping, drag and arrow mapping, big green generate button, and there's all your code. So it's I think that makes it easier for smaller organizations to adopt Data Vault, because the learning curve to learn a piece of software and also the cost for getting into Data Vault automation becomes a little bit easier. On the downside, it doesn't do everything for you. It's not an enterprise platform, so you are going to need other tools to fulfill, the rest of the functions within your data platform. So we just decided we know what swim lane we should be in, that where we have some difference to make, and focused on that.
I don't see that as a downside though, because it means that the end user can personalize it a little bit more to what their needs actually are instead of feeling like they've got one blanket platform that gets steamrolled over everything else.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, I think the majority it'll be that. There will be some sites that are greenfields that just say, "Hey, we want to buy one piece of software that does everything for us. Which one is that?" And that, that's probably not going to be Iris. That's, there might be something else. But those that say, "Well, we've already decided we want to use, Azure Data Factory or whatever, and and Synapse, and we're going to use Git for our uh, content store and a repository." Then we can just go, well, great, we plug in with all those things, so let's go. So
Perfect.
yeah,
Streamlined. Everybody told me the future was going to be faster.
yeah.
It
Well, I
certainly
think
feels like it.
I think it's just removing the boring, mundane stuff. Like when you look at actually the amount of code that Iris will produce just to load a simple model, it's a big stack of code. And if you were trying to handwrite that, or you're writing your own set of templates within some sort of data management platform to do that, you have to keep maintaining those templates and updating them, and then like it, because it's not just have you got a template for a hub, a satellite, and a link. It's all those other things, multi-active satellites and status tracking satellites and all these other things that exist within the Data Vault modeling standards that you have to kind of think about. And then you have to think about it as, well, how do I do it in a way that supports a range of different inputs from different modeling tools and whatever else, and lots of different outputs for supporting different warehouse targets and all those sorts of things. So that's what becomes a useful tool. So that's what we tried to do.
I think there'll be a lot of people who have now got a lot more time on their hands who will be thanking you in the future for that. They can get their social lives back instead of sitting there writing code.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Where can people find more information on Iris?
So the Ignition website is the place to go. So ignition-data.com. The website, so the web pages for Iris are probably up next week. Let's say that.
Or if they're watching this in the future, it went up ages ago and they need to run to catch up.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. But if they're watching this, hopefully they feel like they can reach out to me directly. My email and contact details are everywhere on our site. You can get hold of me. I'm happy to chat to anyone who's interested in Data Vault, and we can help them. We can help them chat about FlowBI or the InfoSecure tool or SQL DBM, because we work with all of these different vendors as well. VaultSpeed and Westgate and Data Vault Builder, and like we love this whole community, and and we're helping people try and do Data Vault well. So it doesn't always have to be one specific tool. There's lots of ways, as I said, to put this architecture together. So.
Sounds like somebody's getting a little excited in the background.
Yes, the guard dog just decided to get.
Glad I don't have one of those here. Brilliant. Well, those are all my questions. I've learned heaps today. Thank you very much, Jules. It's very much appreciated. Hopefully people will be tracking you down to learn a little bit more about these tools, but it's really cool to see these developments happening and knowing that this is sort of the first step. Like there's a lot more of the path it can go down, but it's amazing starting at the beginning and seeing how it's all going to grow.
It's great. Thanks, Paul. Good to chat.
Hey, I need to thank Jules for joining me for this conversation. It was really informative. I learned a lot more about how these new processes speed up what was a pretty time-consuming part of building any kind of data architecture. It's really cool to see these kind of evolutions happening in the world of data management and data architecture. And I love the advice he gave about the kind of things to start looking at if you're looking at starting a career in this field, because, well, this is the kind of thing that, 20, 30 years ago, people probably weren't aware that they could start getting into it. Now you can start planning for these things in advance. Thinking of the future is not a bad thing at all. So again, Julien, thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget, you can come and join the conversation around this over at the DVIC, the Data Vault Innovators community. It's completely free to join. There's links up on screen at the moment. It'd be great to have you over there joining part of the conversation. And also don't forget to keep an eye out on YouTube for our little news snippets that we've got coming up at the moment. We're doing them as shorts to see how that works, because apparently everybody loves shorts. We'll see how that works out. Don't forget as well, like, share, subscribe, tell everybody about us. And until next week, have a fantastic time, and may the force be with you.